Okay, welcome once again to your next lesson on creating assembly drawings for the TowBall assembly. As you can see here on the example, we're going to be creating an assembly drawing much like this one. Sectional front view, top view with our section line, and an enlarged detailed drawing to clearly show how the parts relate to each other, which has also been sectioned. Okay, so let's go across to Creo, and as you would normally do, set your working directory to the folder that you have all your parts and assemblies saved into. And then you need to open up your actual assembly. So go down and find your assembly, and for this case it's not the assembly with the helical cut thread, but it's the one with the cosmetic thread. So open that up, and by having that open we can then create views from there. Okay, so that's open, and now we can create our assembly drawing. So go File, New. This time it's going to be a drawing. Make sure you call it the correct conventions. So I'm going to call mine TowBall_assembly. OK to that. Oh, I've already got one in use. I'll just call number 1 then. And I'm going to make sure that I click on the empty format button, click on Browse, and go find the assembly format. So this is in a format that's been created by Kings on an A3 sheet of paper to populate it with everything you need for assembly. So click on Open, click on OK, and then type in the information. So it's modelled by yourself, enter. It's drawing number 1, enter. Class is 11 graphics, enter. And material, because there's various, we'll call it various materials. Okay, you can see now that we've got an A3 page, title block down the bottom with information, and a table over here. So this table is the first thing we're going to move into the correct position. So click onto your table tab, then click onto the table itself, zoom in a bit, grab a white handle and drag the table so it is sitting above the title block. We need to then position this as close as we can so that those red lines are intersecting with the black lines. A little bit of mucking around there to get that just right. I'll zoom in again here. As long as we get this so it appears that there are 2 lines, or 1 line I should say, that's fine. So Australian Standards tells us that that table must always appear in the bottom right hand corner above the title block. Other things that you'll find in the title block which you may not have checked out before is our crest. You see that the name comes from the file, your name you typed in, that's part of the template. Dimensions in millimeters, tolerance, AS 1100 stands for Australian Standards. Material is various, surface finish, we'll come up to that later. At the moment the scale is set to 1, we'll need to change that later on depending on what scale we actually bring the views in at. Today's date, drawing number 1, and also we'll need to change the sheet number later on depending on how many drawings we create. Okay, so now we need to bring the view in. So to bring a view in we need to be in the Layout tab, and we can either click on the General tab up here to bring a view in, or you can right click. So I'll click on General, click OK, and left click again, and you can see it just defaults to the isometric view. So from your list of model view names, click on front view, zoom in, zoom out, and you can quickly see that that's the desired view that you're after. That is the desired view, but I'll need to change the scale. So I'll go to scale, instead of it being 0.33, we'll change it to a scale of 0.5 and apply that. Then that's probably going to be appropriate sort of size for that sheet of paper. And also we'll zoom in on here and we can see that we've got outlines and hidden detail lines. Now generally speaking most assembly drawings or views do not have hidden detail because you'll be using a section to actually reveal interior detail. So we'll turn the hidden detail off most of the time, no hidden, and apply, and that's pretty right. It's all we need to do to that view at this point in time. Okay, so there's our front view which we're going to section later on. So we need a top view, so right click onto that front view while it's selected, project a top view from that front view. You can see here as I move the cursor left and right and top, it's projecting the information from this view. So project a top view, and once again select that view, open it up, and turn the hidden detail lines off, and everything else should be fine. Okay. Alright, so now we can go into creating a sectional view of this front view here. So to do that, similar to what you've done in the past, we'll need to turn on our planes, zoom in, zoom out, and we'll need to select an assembly plane to create a sectioning line. So first of all, we need to select the view that we wish to section. So in Layout tab, double click on that view. We're going to apply a section to that view, so click on section, and we're going to identify a 2D cross section. It's a new one, so click on the green arrow, and it's a planar cross section. It's going straight through, so click on done. Give it a name. Normally it's a capital A. Enter. And at this point it's giving us options to select an assembly plane or to make one. So at this point here we don't know, well, I can't identify that there's an assembly plane running through the center. So if I hover my mouse over there, you can see it says that it's a front datum plane. Now I'm after a plane that says ASM in the front of it. So there's no plane running through actually where I want to cut. So in that case I can't just choose an existing plane. I must click on Make Datum and just move this box up a bit. And I'm going to choose that I'm going to make a new plane, a new assembly plane through an existing plane. So I click on Through, come across and find a plane hopefully going through the center. There's a line there. I can select that, click on Done. You'll see now the green arrow appears to say that section has been successful. We click on Apply, and our front view has now been sectioned. Now there's probably a good argument here to say, well, we don't need the entire front view section, we only need this area around here. There's no point cutting through the rest of the tow bar. So rather than a full section, you can see here we're going to choose a local section. So click on Local, and it prompts me to select a center point for that local section. So I'm going to zoom in on this front view here, and all I need to do is to click on to a feature that highlights in blue. That'll do there. That's the center point. Zoom out a bit, and then I'm just going to use my left mouse button to keep on clicking and to create a spline that's going around that area that I want to be the local section. To finish the spline off, you center mouse click your button and then click on Apply, and you can now see that the sectioning is now localized to this area within inside that circle. Okay, click on Close, and then we might turn those planes off as well. Okay, it's starting to look pretty good there. We can see now some of the detail. Alright, at this point we'll go back to our PowerPoint, and we'll notice that we need some bomb balloons, and we also need an enlarged view to represent or to clearly see the relationship between the washers and the nut and so on. So back to Creo, back to our drawing, and you'll see under the Layout tab there's a tool called Detailed View. So click on Detailed. Once again, come down to this area here around where we want to enlarge this. Click on the center, and I'm going to choose to draw a circle just around this area. Center mouse button to finish, and you can see an A then immediately pops up. I then left click over somewhere on a blank spot of my page, and you can see it's now giving me an enlarged view of this area here, or if you like, in a detailed enlarged view. You can change the scale of that to make it whatever you want, so I might actually change the scale. It's a scale of 1:1. I might go 1.2 and Apply, and we can see now that there's an A here and there's an A over here, which means that we can identify that this is a detail from here. This does a lot to actually explain the relationship between the parts. Now there's a few rules that we need to also abide by when it comes to sectioning in Australian standards. Australian standards tells us that when we have a sectional view and the section runs through the center of bolts, nuts, washers and other fasteners, we actually are not supposed to actually show those parts being cut. So what we need to do is we need to identify any bolts, washers and nuts or fasteners, and we need to exclude the cross-hatching from those parts. So to do that, you're in the Layout tab, make sure you don't have the view selected, and as you move your cursor across, you'll notice that the cross-hatching highlights in blue. We want to edit this cross-hatching, so double click on it and it opens a dialog box. Now this dialog box basically is then giving us functionality or control over all the cross-hatching. At the moment you can see that the cross-hatching on the nut is highlighted, so that's the active part. If we come down all of our options, we can see here that we have the ability to exclude that cross-hatching. Not erase it, but to exclude it. So I click on exclude, and it just disappears. That's okay. Click on next, and then you'll see that the washer cross-hatching is now editable. We'll also exclude that, so click on exclude. Click on next again, and the bolt comes up. We want to exclude the cross-hatching from the bolt. Click on next. But we do want to leave the cross-hatching there from the ball. But I'd suggest that the angle of the cross-hatching is a little bit ordinary, because it looks like, to me, it's a bit too close to the actual angles here. So I'm going to change the angle of this cross-hatching. So come to angle, click on that. I'm going to change mine to 45 degrees in that direction. That to me looks better. Yeah, that's okay. Now I'm going to choose next again, so scroll up to the top. Click on next, and then just change the cross-hatching for the actual tow bar itself. Once again, I'm going to choose angle, and I'm going to go in the opposite direction to 135, and I'm not satisfied that the cross-hatching lines are too far apart, so I'm going to come back up to the top here, click on spacing, and I'm going to I'm going to halve the spacing, just click on half, and that looks appropriate to me. Once I'm finished, I find the done button, and I click on done. Now, as you can see, because this is the parent view and this is the child view has picked up the properties of the parent view, which is what we're after. The correct representation of all the nut and the washer and so on won't be appropriate, or won't be seen, I should say, until we actually publish this as a PDF. So if we go back to our PowerPoint, we can see we've got our detail and we've got our exclusions. Now we need to include our part reference numbers, or our balloon numbers. So back to Creo again, and we need to go to the table tab, come across to create balloons, and at this point here it's probably worthwhile identifying that this view will be good for identifying which part is the tongue, maybe even the ball and the bolt, or at least the ball. But this view over here is going to be more successful to identify the other parts. So what we might do, we might go create balloons by view. I might do the front view first. And you can see here it puts all the views, all the balloons on. At that point, I might go back to create balloons by view, and then select this detailed view, and it should do that for me. Let's check again, by view. Well, it's not letting me do it. Okay, well, there's a way around that. We want to be able to put these balloon numbers over onto this view here. So we're still in table, and I'm going to leave that number 5 here, and I'll leave the number 2 as the bolt. Yeah, I might leave that there. Number 1 I'm going to leave there being the ball, you can see the ID. But the 3 and the 4 being the nut and the washer, I'm going to move from this view up here to our detailed large view. So you simply click onto the balloon, right click, edit attachment, and at this point we're going to move it. So I'm going to, rather than it being an arrowhead and being on the entity, I'm going to select on surface and fill dot, and then I'm going to simply move the cursor up to the what's this one here? This is number 3. This is the hex nut. So click on the hex nut and then click on done. And then we can just simply move that to the correct position, and we do that for the hex nut, and we do the same thing for the spring washer as well. So edit attachment, on surface, fill dot, go in there and find it, click onto it, as simple as that, and then just move its position. Click on done, and then you can obviously position that accordingly. And it'll probably do the same thing then also for the balloons down here, in here, and so on. Last thing to do then is to simply go to File, Save As, Quick Export. And after we've done that quick export, we'll be able to see the correct representation of all the balloons and so on. And there we go, we can see now it's correctly showing us a thread, an unsectioned bolt and so on. Okay, there you go.
Yeah, Bob's your uncle.